Welcome again to Beyond Stereo, the Dolby Atmos podcast. I'm Dan Bucknell, and here we talk about the world of immersive technologies aimed at creating more meaningful and emotional experiences in film, music, and everything else. With us today, we have Tony Mantz, A.K.A Jack the Bear from Deluxe Mastering.
G'day, mate. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for asking me. You run out of options, eh, to get me on? Gee, you've hit the bottom of the barrel.
Not at all. Could you introduce yourself and explain a little bit about what you do and how you got started in the music industry?
Well, my name is Tony Mantz. People name me Jack the Bear. Long story behind that. We can get to that later. But that's my nickname, has been for my entire life. Most common question I get is, are you Tony or are you Jack? Because I answer to both. But I am a mastering engineer. I work in the music business, have been for pretty much my entire working life. Mastering, for those of you who aren't aware of it, is a process at the end of the recording and mixing chain. So people come to me, they've done a recording, they've mixed their songs, and my job is to take those recordings and optimize the sound, balance them out, get them to a point where they sound finished and they will translate well. And by that, I mean it'll play well. So whether you take it to the car, play it over the phone, play it on the laptop, play it in the club system, play it on the radio, it should all sound pretty consistent and sound pretty good. So that's one of the things I do and been doing most of my working life. I've got a studio in Brunswick. These days I've been, as you young kids would say, pivoting. I don't want to say a brand new career because I'm not letting go of the mastering as much as I'm doing something to enhance the mastering, which is in the realm of public speaking. So going out talking two kind of demographics, okay? So that I'm both equally as passionate about. One of them is to young, artistic, creative kids. Kids are at uni, they're coming out of uni, they're a bit uncertain about life, they don't really know where to go. But particularly the artistic, creative ones. And also for middle-aged men, the guys are in their 40s, late 30s, early 40s, even 50s, who feel like life has just passed them by. They're not in a good place. They may be struggling with themselves, with mental health, with substance abuse, with their relationships with their partners, wives, children, more importantly, themselves. So they're two quite ends of the spectrum, but I'm equally passionate about them because I've had my own journey through both as the young, creative, artistic kid who wanted to do something in the music industry, had a lot of resistance, had a lot of self-doubt, somehow managed to, overcome that and make a career of myself, but also as a bloke that through his, found himself at 47, 48 in an incredibly bad state, morbidly obese, addicted to cocaine, in a very unhappy marriage, kids not wanting to talk to me, just self-esteem at an all-time low, and thankfully having to come through that. So, two quite, maybe not extreme, but certainly two, quite a wide spectrum. Two different kinds of audiences that really don't have much overlap, but nonetheless have a real passion to speak to both through my own experience. So, and here I am finding myself at 61, reauthoring a new chapter in my life when most people at my age now are they're looking down the road at their superannuation and retirement and, maybe taking a caravan around Australia or, doing something else, which is great, which is fine, But that's the furthest thing from my mind. Retirement is something I do every night when I go to bed. And just that whole notion of retiring at all from life to me is not appealing whatsoever.
Yeah, I completely understand that. So your journey, that's such an amazing, thing that you're doing there, talking to people about those important things. I think these issues are quite common. I think a lot of people, in one way or another, experience some version of that, and that's incredible to speak to that. What are some of the things that do overlap between the two ends of that spectrum that you're talking about?
I would say it's people's sense of self-worth. That I think is probably the greatest barometer as to how you are going to navigate life. If you don't feel good about yourself, if you don't feel good within yourself, then then you're not clear in your mind about decisions you're making and direction. That's not helpful. And also peer group. Who are the people you hang out with?
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
as cliche as it all sounds, as a Jim Ron, the old OG personal development guy, I'm paraphrasing, you're the sum of the five people that you hang around with the most. But it's true. So,
Yeah, for sure.
you hang around a bunch of people that are up and motivated and keep you accountable, whether you like it or not, that's going to rub off on you in the same way that if you're around a bunch of people that are not doing well, not motivated, sit and whinge and whine about the world. It doesn't matter how much of a high performer you may be. If you hang around that energy long enough, again, by osmosis, it'll just rub off, and then eventually you'll find yourself being just like them. That's just how it is. So, why it's important to choose carefully and be discerning about who are the people that you hang out with. And, so many people will sit and take an inventory and think about, what's my phone plan? Where am I going to go for holidays? How am I going to refinance my car? But how many people sit down and actually do an inventory of who are my friends? Who are the people I hang out with? Who are the people that I spend the most time with? Now, I know in Australia, one of our great values is mateship, and not just mateship, but loyalty to your mates and sticking with your mates. And, you know, when I was first told about my peer group and having a look at my peer group, it became apparent to me that there were a couple of people at the time whom I had a long history with, but I knew that they weren't good for me, and vice versa for that matter. And it was very painful to realize that I was going to have to, if not have some kind of amicable divorce, at the very least knew I was going to have to see less of them. And that was very painful because, again, this feeling of guilt of like, oh, I feel like a terrible friend, who's perfect anyway. I felt like it was an abandonment. I'd be abandoning them. And then the concern of like, what are they going to think about me and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it took some courage to do that, and it does take courage to do that, especially with the people that you've known for a very long time. You've had a lot of history with, lots of barbecues, lots of birthdays, knowing your deepest, darkest secrets, in fact. But the reality is that all that's fine and dandy, but when it gets to that point where you know that you deep down, some people are just not going to be good for you, or vice versa for that matter. I love you, but I'm going to love you now from a distance.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really hard thing to do because it's not always easy to even see what the right thing is for yourself. But and when you make those kind of decisions, it does impact a lot of other areas of your life as well, as you were saying. But like particularly around art and what you were talking about with how those things overlap with say your mastering side, and now talking about those areas in people's lives that I think everyone can relate to. If you're not with the right group, or if you're not with the right mental state in yourself, then particularly in the music industry, you're not going to be making very good stuff. You're not going to be making your best material when you're on the ground like that. And I think that probably relates to all other areas as well. If you're not sort of, being authentic to yourself, or taking care of yourself in those ways, and that's, through the people you correspond with, or see, or other things, in your life, then yeah, you're not going to be doing the best of anything, and I think that carries through particularly into the music as well, because I've talked about that idea before as well. You sort of have to really love what you're doing and be really into it, for it to matter and translate to an audience. But I think that really is a good point, that it is relating to everything in our lives.
Yep, most definitely. And I think another thing that people don't think about much, which really impacted on me, is it's great to have a peer group, but let's just say you get the situation where you don't necessarily have the peer group you want, or it's okay to be on your own for a while too. As much as
Yeah.
we need to connect and be a part of something, we want to belong to the tribe. And I put a post up yesterday on Facebook. I put this up several times. It's one of my favorite quotes from Groucho Marx, where, again, I'm paraphrasing, but basically he said, "I'll refuse to be a member of a club that will accept me as one of its members." And so, there's something to be said about being okay on your own, because no matter where we go in our life, no matter what the path is, we're on our own. And people are always looking for validation. People are looking for the cheer squad. People are wanting to be propped up. And the work that you do now, whatever that may be, in the creation of art, in the pursuit of your fitness, in building relationships with people, it's a lonely path. You are pretty much on your own for the most of it. And everyone for that matter is, because here's the reality. Everyone is the star of their own movie.
Yes, I've spoken about that before as well. That's a really good one.
And the reason I say that you, me, or we're all the star of our own movie is because we're in every scene of that movie. And other people that are in there, at best, I mean, there's no co-stars. There may be some extras in your life for the same thing. I'm a cameo, if that, you know. And so, you know, we're all kind of focused on our own thing. Now, this doesn't mean that we're selfish, doesn't mean we're self-centered, doesn't mean that we don't care about other people, but the reality is that we are doing our own thing. And so, you know, it's okay to be focused on your project. You know, I can tell you now that for all the things I've ever created, whether it was my studio or a podcast or an event, and, you know, yes, I'm a great believer in collaboration, getting people involved, contribution. I love all that kind of stuff, and I'm all about it. But by the same token, nobody will ever love the thing that you birthed yourself, like your own children. No one's going to love your children the way you love them. And so when it comes to art and your creativity, some people are going to get on board, some people may not like it. And yet it shouldn't matter because it's your love, it's your project, it's your passion, it's your vision that you need to focus on and not to be too concerned about what other people think. You know that not everyone's going to like it. So just accept that from the start and be okay with that. Just be okay with that. And again, you know, we are our own worst critic.
Yeah.
And so this is why I think we need to just go with what we like, what we're happy with, not be too concerned about, not try and second guess what Johnny Punchclock is going to like or not. Just kind of be authentic in your expression, do your thing, put it out there, and just allow it to be. And whatever it is, it is. So long as you enjoy the process, so long as you're happy with what you're doing and the outcome, understanding, of course, that there's always room to improve. There's always things to do better. I like to go back and listen to things that I've worked on.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. And quite often I will look at something, and obviously the very, very early stuff can be quite cringy. And that's okay. You know, you got to crawl before you can walk. But
Yeah.
even let's go back as far as 5 years, right? When I'm still was at a stage where I was very competent and business was good and I was considered, you know, within the top 1,000 of Australia.
Probably higher
I
than
would
that.
go to I was the greatest mastering engineer in my street. Okay. I know I got that trophy. So I listen to things and I go to myself, oh, geez, if I was to do that today, I reckon I could do it a little bit better. And that's a good place to be. Some people might get upset and go, "Ugh." Well, that's a sign that you've actually grown. So many artistic, creative people I know will sit and wish and hope and dream about maybe doing something. They won't even get out of bed to put the shoes on to get to the start of the racetrack because they've already shoot themselves in the foot because they just think that they're not good enough or the people are going to like it or it's too hard or insert whatever excuse you want. And the world gets robbed potentially of maybe some genius that will come out. You know, they've already shot themselves in the foot. So, and I find that incredibly sad. And this is why I like to speak to those kids, because when I go and do talks, particularly to young kids or at uni, college, any kind of tertiary school, all I really want to do is just try and maybe just be like a domino that shifts their thinking, take them from this is no good, I'm not going to get there, it's too hard, I'm not good enough, my dad told me this, my mum told me that, my friends told me this, my school teacher told me that, to maybe if I give it a go, you with me? As far as I'm concerned, that's all I need to do. So just to tip them enough, again, like a domino, just enough force to create that new chain reaction. And that's what I focus on, and that's what I'm interested in doing, and that's where I feel the work is.
Inspiration is like the first step, like you said, that domino. And I guess the imposter syndrome, you know, we've all felt that before. I'm sure you know, at some point in every creative's career, we've all had that feeling like, what am I doing? Am I good enough? Is this gonna hit, or is it just gonna completely flop? Should I bother? All of those things that we beat ourselves up with, and it's just a sort of a human thing, you know, to feel that way. But I think what you're trying to say there, and you know, one of the things I love about your social media posts as well, is that you're always propping people up and going, hey, you know what? It's okay to be where you're at and just do something. Just try, get started. And it's okay, especially with what you were saying before as well, that you know, looking back 5 years and how far you've come, if you can see change and growth, then you're on the right track. You're actually moving forward. And you know, that's proof that you know, the imposter syndrome doesn't have to win. And that's such an important thing, I think, for anyone starting out or anyone in the industry at all to hear.
We've all had it to a degree. Even people at the top end. And I'm going to share with you my story around imposter syndrome with your audience.
Go for it.
So for my entire life, I felt like an imposter. Now, the reason I felt that way was because as a mastering person, you go to a studio. There was no formal education back then, right? This is the 80s, okay?
Yeah.
No formal education, no schooling. You basically got a job on the ground level as what they call a runner. So you were just there to make coffee, make tea. You were a dog's body, effectively, and lack of a better word, a slave, okay? But you just did all the menial jobs, and you were there for many, many hours. There was no overtime. There was nothing like that.
If you got paid at all.
Well, and some people didn't get paid at all. Well, I didn't get paid because it's the other thing, because I never really had an internship either.
Right.
Okay. I went from different studios just learning along the way and observing and doing it that way. So I didn't go through the classic system. So, you become a runner, then, you prove yourself, and then they would later become an assistant, and then you'd be doing that for a while. And maybe, just maybe, you become the in-house engineer. Some people went off and became freelancers. I went straight from going to all these different studios and traveling from that, never having a formal position, plus the fact that I'm not a technical person. To this day, I'm completely non-technical. I mean, Dan here had to help me get my mic up and running.
Got it working. So
yeah, I'm okay with that. But all these things led me to feeling like I was an imposter. And I went through my career like looking over my shoulder all the time, and particularly because of social media and people, dig up stuff on people from 15, 20, 30, 1,000 years ago. And I was waiting for someone to kind of go, hey, who is this guy? Like, where did he come from? I mean, we were here. We started here. We went, here's our career path. Here it is, all documented. Where did you come from? Who the hell are you to say that you're some kind of master engineer? Are you kidding us? So I never felt like I was one of the boys. So I went through with a huge amount of anxiety, over thinking that I'm going to get caught out. And no one. So here I was sitting here just feeling absolutely terrified all the time. And then, not allowing myself to really enjoy any of the successes, because again, I just felt like a fraud. Anytime people would say, oh, wow, that was great, thanks very much, I'd be just like fobbing them off. Maybe not fobbing them off that abruptly, but this is my faux humility, so to speak. So, oh yeah, you're just saying that because you're my friend or you're what have you. Anyhow, let me tell you more importantly about how I managed to get over it and move through that. There was a guy who I went and saw for many years. We'll call him a counselor. He wasn't a psychologist, but he was a counselor, a mentor, a really, really good dude, but he was very, very switched on. And I remember I was telling her I was stuck in this space. And he said to me, he goes, oh, so you're an imposter, yeah? I said, well, I think so because of this. He goes, right. He goes, so people come to you. You're not the only show in town. They come to you consciously. You're telling me that you have a very important role in their career, that these are guys who spend money and effort into making their music. It's super important, and you're the last check and balance, and they're spending good money to use you. That's what they do. I said, yeah. He goes, so what makes you think you're that special? I said, what do you mean? He goes, are you a charity? I mean, you're telling me these people care about their music. They could go to all these other places, and if they come to you, they're paying you money for something that's really important to them. All of a sudden, you're a charity case? What are you saying? These people just do this because, they feel sorry for you somehow? And that really struck me. And I never thought of it that way, because I thought, wow, because it's almost like insulting my clients, because they don't come because I'm a special. These are career people who have invested time, energy, money into their art. And now they're coming to the final hurdle where this is where it comes to the end. This is after it leaves me and it goes out into the world, when Johnny Punch Clock hits play, this is what they're going to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Final step.
So exactly. And it's a critical step. And so they're just going to all of a sudden, what have you? And until he presented that to me, and again, if you're someone out there that is a professional and is getting paid to do something, don't feel like you're a fraud. I mean, it's true that we all have room to grow and opportunity to improve our skills. But if you're already in a situation where someone's already coming to pay you and refer to other people and you got all this word of mouth going on, you can't be a fraud. Logically speaking, you just can't be a fraud. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And so when that was turned on me and I sat down and reflected on that, that really changed a lot for me. That was a huge shift and sort of got me thinking quite differently about it. And even when it came to how I came through the system, right? And again, he said, okay, so maybe it wasn't orthodox, but wow, what a great story that you came to where you are through a different method, through a way that other people hadn't gone through, which is actually unique, which actually makes you stand out from other people. You're not like everybody else. What a wonderful distinction to have, and a credit to you, he said, and the work you've done and being able to do it in a different way, which may inspire someone else who thinks, oh, maybe they need to go through a system that they don't necessarily have to go through. So these are things were very, very helpful. And again, when it came to the acceptance of compliments or any sort of positive feedback, again, he applied the same kind of rule, and I said to him, "Oh, look, I really don't want to get too big for my boots. This is Australia. This is the place where we don't, tall poppy syndrome. I need to self-regulate and put myself down." And I conflated, okay, humility with humiliation. Okay,
it's a big one.
so I was telling myself this story that no, this is my way of trying to, keep myself calm before anyone else would get in, just
Yeah,
like to take the heat away so that no one can get the upper hand, so to speak. It's a weird kind of self-protection. He said, okay. He said, so have you ever given people compliments or told them they were really great at something? I said, yeah. Yes. What makes you so special? Are you telling me that you're disingenuous? Are you telling me that when you've told someone something positive and complimentary that you were just saying it because you had to say it or because you felt obliged to say it or because you just didn't mean it? Are you disingenuous? And again, it's just like,
yeah, paradigm shift. I mean, I guess that reignited something there for you. Um, what was the end game, I guess, of that? Like, where did that new realization take you beyond where you were at before? Because I'm sure that was holding you
what
back in a way.
what that new realization did is just give me freedom. It gave
Mm,
me freedom to just be able to do my thing without just holding on to this heavy weight on my back and just unnecessary concern and anxiety. It just
yeah,
allowed me to be free and move forward and be okay with who I was and how I got there, and that I wasn't a fraud, and that yes, I know it's become a cyclical theme in this podcast so far, but
wow,
just again having enough humility to understand that there's room to grow and evolve, and that was going to be a lifelong pursuit that never ended, but also being okay with acknowledging how far I've come, where I'm at, what I'm doing, and that there is some worth in
absolutely.
whatever it is that I'm putting out into the world. You know, we so many of us want to strive, and I encourage everyone to strive and do their best and just keep improving and pushing. That's beautiful, and we're always looking ahead, and that's fine, that's great. But how often do people actually stop just for a moment, not to put their foot on the brake, but rather just stop just for a moment and have a little look over your shoulder and just see how far you've actually come? Because for most of us, we don't stop to take that inventory
Yeah,
because we're always looking ahead. So many of us started somewhere, and we go through our journey and we do our thing, we create our art and build our business and create our life that we want to create. And then we stop, and then we realize, hang on a minute, so much of what I have today was a wish once upon a time. It was a pipe dream. And because we just tend to, and it's a human thing, and I've been guilty of myself,
oh, absolutely,
just
me
to
too.
take just to take things for granted and just kind of because the message is keep moving, keep pushing, keep striving. Again, beautiful. I have no problem with that. But every now and again, just stop, smell the coffee, give yourself a little pat on the back, and acknowledge how far you've come in whatever area of life that may be. And then use that as a springboard, right, to fuel you to project yourself forward,
Yes.
because now you've got this confidence in yourself to go, wow, okay, I've now leveled up, I'm at this level, and now I can do things this way, and I've proven to myself that I can do great things and I can make it, so to speak. When making it, here's the funny thing about making it, kids, okay? No one ever makes it. It's all a perception. You're making it is the fact that you manage to get up, have a go, have a crack, and do it, right? Even if you do your art on the side. From the moment I had the idea in my head of I want to build an incredibly beautiful studio complex to building it and not just having it, but making it, having enough critical mass where I didn't need to do any other sideline jobs or the side hustles, as you kids would
Yeah.
call,
Yeah.
was a 21-year journey. 21 years from the conception to the moment where, oh, I don't have to work on the weekends or do any extra work. That was 21 years for me.
Yeah, wow. I'm
Okay.
not quite there. I mean, I
You
work
know,
full time doing this, but I still have to, DJ and do other things as well to make it work. So it is a journey for sure.
it is, and that's okay. And particularly in this day and age, most of you who are out there starting and doing your thing are going to have to do it. And listen, that's okay. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Absolutely.
The making is the fact that you actually decided to do something. The fact that you had enough gumption to, rather than sit down and just kind of dream about it and think about it and look at others and wonder why it's not happening to me, that you got off and done it. That's the making it. That's the whole gist of it all, because there's no end point. There's no end point. There never will be an end point. So don't worry about an end point. Enjoy what you do and think of that as success. And guess what? How do you get good at something? By repetition. The more you do something, the better you get. The better you get, the more skills you have. And guess what's going to happen then, kids? The world will find out about you, trust me. And then that's when money starts coming in. As my great aunt used to say, focus on the one and the zeros will follow. And by that she meant fundamentals. Stick to the fundamentals. Do what's important, just over and over, and keep trying and rolling up your sleeves. And how many times I get asked, Dan, about, oh, how do I get good at this? Or people are waiting for the
Exactly.
magic bullet, or the magic preset, or the magic plugin, or the magic, whatever. There is no magic anything. Okay. The genius sometimes, when that happens, quite often, some of the genius that people have said about me usually came from so-called happy accidents, because I decided to try something different, because I went out, I thought, okay, I understand about all the rules and what the classical way of doing things and the orthodoxy and all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
what about if I do something that the purists will go, oh, we can't be doing that? But somehow, wow, that came out of nowhere, right? It's because I dared to get outside the rule, throw the full book away for that matter, but just to try different things.
That extends to like pretty much anything I've ever seen in terms of like new inventions, new ideas, new things that everyone's scared of something new. And maybe it's not the done way. So people are afraid to try. And then, when you do though, that's the thing. Like, we went to the moon, we all these amazing things. That started with an impossible dream. And then through repetition and learning and basically putting everything you have into something, that's how we achieve anything. And I think that's yeah, exactly. What you're saying there is such an important part of this. People want that golden goose or the magic bullet, and it just doesn't exist. You got to find the right that works for you, and it's different for everyone too. So it's a completely subjective thing sometimes. But yeah, I completely agree. It's such a it's an interesting one, because I think so many people maybe don't want to try. I can't even relate it to my own experience here. I was working in a factory, and I wasn't. I didn't feel fulfilled. It was kind of just a mundane, 9 to 5 kind of thing, or 8 to 4 or whatever it was. And honestly, I was really depressed. It was pretty bad. And through COVID and stuff like that, I ended up just going, you know what, I have to put myself and my family first, and I have to finally take this jump and do something crazy, because otherwise I never will. That's what got me started doing all of this properly. I already had a studio, it was basic and whatever, but from then, having that crazy jump, just going, you know what, if I don't do this now, I never will, and I'm at breaking point now. I have to try something new. I have to really, really go for it. Now's the time, and to show my kids as well that, that's what you do. You have to make this happen. It doesn't just happen to you.
And you don't want to die wondering, Dan.
Absolutely.
You don't want to end up, I mean, if those of you are much younger, probably, think you're going to be around forever. But let me tell you, life catches up.
Yeah.
60 just crept up on me, and I'm just going, you know, and and so time is my most precious resource to me.
For
So
sure.
don't waste time. Don't allow yourself to get to a point where you're going to look back and go, I would have, I could have, I should have. Too late at that
Exactly.
point.
So, I'd love to hear about some of the, some of the artists you've worked with, maybe on the bigger scale as well as all types. And yeah, like how did you sort of get into working with, artists of those calibers?
Mm.
Starting on your own, you sort of built this from scratch.
Well, yeah, it's been an interesting journey through that. Actually, some of the biggest records I've worked on were actually bands that weren't big in the first place.
Right.
Um, and I don't want to say that they were big because of me. When it comes to what I do in music, the most important thing is the song. A good song is a good song is a good song,
Of course.
and we need a great song, we need a great arrangement, great recording, good mix. Beautiful performance. Genuine, authentic expression. And then I just come in at the end, and more often than not, a record that has got all the ducks lined up, so to speak, will usually be okay. And a classic case of that is, some of you people might know Guy Sebastian. All right, so Guy Sebastian was the guy who won the first Australian Idol, and this record had already been done. Now, already this record was pre-sold. It was, it's sold 4,000 trillion copies or something before it came out in pre-sales. And the record had already been done. But a producer, a guy called Jared Rogers, who I've been doing some work with at the time, said to me, hey, there's an extra song that I produced, and Sony want to put it on. The guy that did the guy that did the record, Steve Smart, wasn't able to do it in the time frame. I want an extremely tight time frame. So
Right.
I wasn't even the guy chosen. Okay, I wasn't the chosen one, but an opportunity came up, and so I said, yeah, I can do it, no problem at all. So here I am working on a record that was already going to sell squid in
Yeah.
records.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't because of me, right? But nonetheless, it's cool. It's cool. It was
I
it
mean, you
was just
contributed to that though.
I,
I mean,
I contribute. I
yeah.
contributed to it, but the thing is, the horse had already bolted, so it was already on
Yeah.
its. It was already on its way. So that was one situation. But quite often, the bands that I worked on that did anything were unknown. I think there's something incredibly satisfying about that, because you get to be successful with them, so to speak, and ride their coattails on the way up. You
For
know what
sure.
I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when I was young and starting out, of course, I would think about, oh, geez, it'd be great to work with these really good names, and it's good to have, and it's important to have, because on a resume, think about it, perception is everything to the market. People are going to see, like, okay, well, oh, they've worked with so and so. I really like the sound of that record, or oh, that record's very successful, and so there's this guilt by association that makes you better than you actually are. All
Yes.
right, and I remember one of my mentors, Howie Weinberg, told me years ago. I was getting so frustrated because I was working hard, and nothing was really happening. And by that, I mean, all these records I was working on, they were great records and people were happy with what I did, but nothing really hit. Nothing really got on the radio. Nothing became. And he said to me, just be patient. He said, it's all about the home run.
Mm.
And you just need one. You just get one record that does well, and all of a sudden, people think you're wonderful. And you're no better engineer than you were before, than you are now. But because all of a sudden you've become associated with this record, and it becomes, it's in the public consciousness, and people know about it, and they just see all your names associated to it. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, you're the guy for now, right? And that's how you build your momentum and build your reputation,
Yeah. Yeah.
so to speak. So when it comes back to the, big names, of course I always wanted to do that, but I learned also very early that every job you do, no matter it's for a big name artist or it's just the local band down the street, the money you get paid has exactly the same buying power. Okay.
Yeah.
And every job you do, to me, is an opportunity just to do something that I love doing. It really doesn't matter. It's great to have accolades. It's great to have, gold and platinum records. And yeah, and I've got a fair few at the studio, and I don't want to discount them in any way, and I don't want to sort of humble brag or anything like that. Of course they're nice to have. Of course they're wonderful. And of course
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been able to leverage some work off of that. Okay. In terms of building or, creating this perception that people have. But here's the thing. Now, the biggest record I ever worked on in terms of a commercial success was for a band called The Neighborhood, an American college band. Okay.
Okay.
Unknown, you know, and again, I only got to work on this record because the producer was a friend, liked me, wanted to work with me. The record company said, "Oh, we got our guy. We've already got our blah, blah. This guy's an unknown to us. Who is he? And whatnot." And anyway, the record did really well. The single went double platinum.
Wow.
Okay, so 2 million copies, and the album went gold, which is 500,000 units. Maybe it's done more since that time. And they were kind enough to send me the plaques, and of course it was great. It felt awesome, and my ego got a good lift, and it was wonderful, and it was a wonderful thing to have. But you know what? Later on that evening, I still scrubbed the toilet, and I took out the wheelie bin.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you said it really well before. I think that having those accolades or those things, like, while they're so great to have, and obviously we're going for the top notch no matter what we do, and that's really the pivotal thing there. I think you should be treating every job like you're going to do that. Like, you should be doing everything you can to make whatever you're doing the best it can be, and that's what makes these things work that way. I suppose at the level of those guys, everyone did that, from writing the song, the arrangement, and all of those things, recording, mixing, and finally mastering. And then you need a good marketing team and all of the distro and all that sort of stuff as well. Like, every stage worked because all of them were putting in that level of effort, and that's really, I guess, the main thing, right? It has to be this, it's a group effort to make that kind of success happen, and everyone cared about it that much.
Put it this way, in the context of my job, any of the records that did well, we're going to do well, whether it was me doing the mastering at the end or somebody else, because as you mentioned, everything else was in line, everything else was working together. There was this, the sum of all the parts was all working, and so they were going to do well anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but the approach, or you're correct. You got to treat everyone like they're a rock star. And of all the records I've ever worked on, the ones where I worked on where I thought, oh my God, it's amazing, it's going to blow up. This is just going to change the history of the world. Didn't go anywhere. And then other records I worked on, which I thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. Just didn't think much. Just blew up.
Yeah.
Absolutely blew up. I think I've only ever maybe once or twice picked it where I thought, okay, this has got teeth. This is going to get traction. This is going to make a dent, right?
And then it did.
It did. And it did. I didn't even think The Neighborhood was going to be that big. I thought, oh, this is a really cool band. And, they got some really great songs. But it'll just get, lost up with all the other stuff. It'll get a small audience, and it'll be an indie thing. And
I suppose it depends on your perspective as well, because everyone's got different tastes and things like that. Even for the creatives working on the projects, I do a lot of film work, as you know, and so some films I'm working on, I might be really, really into, and some things I'm like, this is cool, but it's not something necessarily that I would love. And sometimes you get projects like that. And yeah, I mean, in that sense, with you in music, I guess it's sort of depending on everyone having their own tastes as well. So that's why we maybe can't pick it all the time. But if you treat everything with the utmost respect for what the media is, then it's got the best chance of doing whatever it can for those people who've put their heart and soul into it.
And also just remind yourself that, hey, I actually get to do this, not I have to do this. Yeah, yes, it may not be the thing I'm into necessarily, as in, again, I work on records that I wouldn't necessarily listen to again after I've done with them. But I always think to myself, wow, these people made a conscious choice to come and work with me. They chose to work with me. They had options. I mean, this day and age, no shortage of great options at the money. no shortage. And yet they made a conscious decision. So, hey, I better honor that. I better respect that and make sure that I give them everything. I'll give them a really, really good experience, And I think for freelancers out there, if anyone there is a freelancer, understand that, yes, you're an artiste. That's great. And and people are paying you for your art, but also don't forget that you are providing a service. The service being of entertaining people, of giving them a good time. And so it's important to remember that, you bring a little bit of humility to what you do, and not just understand that you're a service, but one thing that I've been talking about of late, which is, I think, a really important distinction, certainly was an important distinction for me. I'm going to share this with your audience, is not just be someone of service, but also provide hospitality. Right. Now, there's a distinction between the two. The service is the act of what you do. Okay. I'm a performer. I'm an engineer. I'm an editor. I'm a director. I'm a whatever. Okay. The hospitality is how you conduct yourself, how you provide that service. What's the experience that you're going to give the end user? I'm always very mindful that, people like me are a dime a dozen. And that's not bringing myself down. We're in a world now where there is online, the global market. There are so many mastering engineers out there who are absolutely awesome, who are providing as good, if not better than me, probably for less money than I charge. All right. There's AI, there's all these options. Okay. But where I try to create a distinction, while it's important to have good ear and skill and all that stuff's great, but where I try to bring the distinction and where I think people need to focus their attention on is, what's the experience for the client? How do you make them feel? That's what they're going to remember more than anything. And that comes anything from the very start, the initial inquiry that you get, the first email, the first phone call. How do you help them? How do you assist them? If you can't be a service to them right now, don't throw them under the bus and say, I can't do this for that money, or I can't help you. Look at how you can help people. How can you direct them? And people might think, well, that's not really helpful. That's not going to put money in my pocket. Maybe not, but you're playing the long game.
Yes.
The amount of times I have had to send people to other people for varying reasons, whether it's because there was a budget or time or, something going on there that I just said, look, I can't adequately provide the value I'd like to provide for you and not do the job. Quite often people will say, how much do you charge? It's the most common question you get. It's a normal question. It's a valid question, because at the end of the day, people have only got so much in the purse strings. Okay. Oh. So they're going to ask you, what do you charge? I never, ever give a price, ever. And it's not because I'm trying to be coy or evasive, right? The reason I don't do that is because I just can't price a job, just on that alone. So this is where I start to think about, okay, let's ask some questions. Let's get engaged. Let's show this client that I'm actually interested in them and their project. So that involves asking questions. So tell me a little bit more about your record or your film. What's involved? What's it about? Where you at the moment? Can I maybe have a look at what you're doing and just see where you're at and see if it's actually ready for me to be involved? All these kind of things that make the client think like, oh, you really give a damn. You really do care. You're not just here just to make money off me. And even if you can't get the work, or even if you choose not to do the work, it still creates this goodwill. Remember, the greatest advertising, the greatest marketing is word of mouth. And so I had a time, I'll share the story with you guys, where this is probably about 20 odd years ago, where I got an inquiry to do an album, and someone said, hey, we got a 10-track album. What's it cost? At the time I quoted, I think it was $1,500. No. Didn't hear anything back. See this guy at a gig 3 or 4 years later, come up to me and said, oh, hey, going, man, look, sorry we didn't come to you. This only ended up being an album, 10 songs. It was only 2-minute songs. It was a pretty short punk pop album. Now, I didn't at the time think about, tell me more about the record. What's involved? What exactly are we dealing with here so I can do my due diligence? Because if I had, I would have been able to price that job much lower, which maybe got me the job, but I didn't. However, having said that, there was other things that were going on with this guy, and he remembered me because, oh, you so-and-so told us that you helped them out with something. You sent them off to so-and-so. Anyway, whatever it was, I didn't get the work, but I helped them out. And then they told someone else, and then they rang me and said, hey, so-and-so sent us. So always be of service. Always give a good experience to people, because that's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember how you treated them and how invested you were. That's what people care more about than anything else. All the stuff about your studio, your equipment, the records or films you may have worked on, they're great and they're important and they carry weight. But I can tell you now that I would say that 9 out of 10 people would prefer to work with someone who's 90% skilled, but is awesome to be around.
Yeah.
Just good energy, helpful, involved, invested, than someone who's 100%, but just someone who's really difficult to deal with, who's full of themselves, who doesn't make the experience good, that doesn't make you feel comfortable, that doesn't make you feel like they're really there for you, as opposed to just seeing you as like, oh, I need to come up with X amount to pay for my lease on my BMW this month.
Yeah, no, I've seen the same thing exactly in say the film industry as well. I mean, there are so many cinematographers, for example, and there's directors and producers working with these guys to and choosing the right person. It's sort of nearly always depends on how well they gel with the group, and it is a collaborative thing. The whole thing of making a film or even just a single scene is could be 20 people in a room, and everyone has to work together to make this thing happen. And if one person is sort of like a link in the chain there, it just doesn't work. And so yeah, I think it's a huge one, that they choose their people not completely on skill. Obviously that's like a given, like yeah, that has to be there, but yeah, if they gel well with you, if they understand your personality and can get along, I think that's more important for the experience, like you said, than the skill in that sense. I see that everywhere. And that's a really good one. I have a similar situation I can talk about where, people have said, what's your price? Expecting sort of that it's just an exact figure all the time. And honestly, I never work like that either. I think maybe we've talked about this before when I came and saw you that time. I think the main thing for me is just that there's no point me giving you a figure and you immediately being alienated by that if you can't afford it, and then just thinking, oh, well, it's not possible, and then leaving. And it's like, well, hang on, how can we work something out? What can you afford? What can you do, and what's possible that I can do for that? We can still work out something. And usually it works. I've never had an issue where that hasn't worked, where we just go, you know what? Let's just make a plan together and find a way to make something happen.
And sometimes you'll come across those projects that you are really captivated by. Yeah. And so all of a sudden you will find a way to sharpen your pencil, because now you really want to get involved with this. You're struck by it, and you are just like, wow, this is amazing. I just want to get on board with this because I just want to be a part of it. I want to participate. I want to make a contribution. Can I just say something a bit before we're talking about the personalities and that? And one other thing that I think people, particularly who are young and starting out in freelancing, is to understand this, which is really important, and that is that we are living in a relationship economy. All right. Your success is going to come down to your ability to foster and nurture relationships. And the currency of the economy is trust. And trust is something you earn. And trust is earned by those things that we talked about before, about showing interest, being invested, doing that little bit extra. I'm not talking about going so overboard that you become a doormat, but I'm talking about doing it because, trust me, most people out there don't do these things. These are small things that most people don't do. And I guarantee you, if you start being a little bit more interested in people and wanting to be involved and not having an ulterior motive other than just looking out for them, okay, and being interested in them, and them realize, and you being authentic in that, and authenticity is binary. You either are or you're not. People feel it. We all do. Okay. No point trying to be authentic, because trying to be authentic by virtue of that is being inauthentic. Correct. So just be yourself and be okay with it, and just be invested. And people are going to feel that, and they're going to be attracted to that. And the same, again, you're no different to what they are. So when you can practice some empathy and put yourself in the shoes of the other person and think about, okay, what would I reasonably expect? What are the things I'd like to hear? What are the actions I'd like to see being taken in this situation within reason? Okay. Within reason. And so if you can apply those things to people, chances are you'll have a greater strike rate when it comes to earning trust, because once you earn people's trust, then it doesn't become about selling anymore. No one wants to be sold to. Everyone loves to buy. So don't be a salesman. Don't push an agenda. Just be there to serve your clients, do the right thing by them. And that, as far as the long-term strategy, is the best way to go. So get good at building relationships and fostering relationships, because that is the foundation to your success.
Yeah, wow. Because I mean, I sort of know that intuitively, and I think most of our listeners will know that intuitively. But it's to be put that way, where in the scenario where maybe you've got a business, maybe you've got a band, whatever it is. I mean, we're all kind of selling something in that sense, right? But at the same time, your customers or the people that you work with, and anyone who you associate with, no one wants to feel like a salesman does. Like it sounds very fake, and people see through it completely. So yeah, exactly. Even with actual ads, I've actually had this situation before where we're making ads, we're making a commercial, and the idea that I always try to capture there is that this has to feel more like a value proposition that is genuine, more than hey, buy our thing, because otherwise people don't care. They just completely gloss out. Yeah, I think that's just really true with every kind of friendship and or relationship anywhere. If you've got something to gain from it and that's kind of your only motivation, it's not meaningful. It has to be a give take thing, and that you actually care.
Definitely.
On the social media, I see a lot of posts from you, which are always inspiring, beautiful messages of love and sort of hope and things like that. I wondered when you actually started doing that, and maybe what the reason was to get going, because I know how important that is in our industry, and you're talking to musicians and other engineers just about how to be a good person, and that like why that matters for yourself and for everyone around you. But yeah, when did you actually get started into doing those posts, because they're so amazing, man.
Oh, thanks, bro. Um,
Yes.
I like to think that, look, for a very long time, I've been interested in personal development and people that are positive. I also saw a lot of nonsense and a lot of the facade that was through there. But what really got me started more on expressing myself that way was, and this is something I don't really talk too much about, not because of any embarrassment, but I'm happy to share about it here. Was I had a big spiritual awakening many, many years ago. And it was through that experience of basically the world is one, it's all one thing. There's no separation, and that everything is love in the world. And it really just struck me, man. I thought, you know what? I need to embody this, and I think there's a lot in it. And so really it was from there that made me think, okay, I'm going to be a positive force, and I'm going to just put out positive messages. And also because social media is set up to be very adversarial. And I really, and I used to be that guy. Before that experience, I used to be that guy. I'd get online, I'd want to kick heads, and I thought I was being so very self-righteous because I was trying to defend the newbies that were getting attacked by the old guys, and just being very forceful, and created this persona around myself. When in fact I knew that I didn't need to bring up all this stuff. I could let go of all these layers and allow myself to get to my true essence, which is, I'm a loving person, I'm a compassionate person, I'm a caring person, and to be okay with that, and to have enough courage to allow myself to be that guy without fear of worrying about what people are going to say or think or what have you, because it's the greatest fear that we have, right? That we're not enough, or what people are going to think about us. That experience really tipped me over the edge and started me going down a path of like, okay, how can I be someone of service? How can I be someone that can create some good? How can I be a positive force? How can I create, some positive influence on people, and put a message out there that's going to encourage people, and invite people to think about things in a different way, rather than just be, again, that salesman, or pushing what I'm doing, or what have you. So that's where it really started. As one of my mentors, Craig Harper, would say, you can't get good at what you avoid. And I was avoiding being that because I was afraid. But once I let go of my fear, eventually it became easier to be more, to lead with an open heart, and to be more of my true essence. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so as time goes on, I was able to be more and more of that, and be completely comfortable in that, and really, really step into that place, to the point where now it's like, yeah, there's no fear, there's no concern, there's no hesitation. And again, not because I'm trying to attract likes or create. This is just me, and this
Yeah.
is how I roll. And I think that is probably going to create more impact and do more to anyone than just master their record. So particularly as I've become older and I've become, you know, for lack of a better word, softer in some ways. Not soft as in weak, but just be okay to be vulnerable and just be myself. And like this is who I am, and I'm perfectly okay.
That's beautiful, honestly, to hear. And I'm so glad you said it like that. Because I mean, I think there's this whole stigma, particularly, and it's always been a thing, and maybe not as much now, but yeah, around, say men, who like are not supposed to be vulnerable or not supposed to show their feelings and things like that. And look, while there's a lot of movement towards normalizing those things, because obviously we all need to express ourselves in healthy ways. The kind of messages that you promote on those channels that way, I would say, is really, really impactful. At least for me, I've listened to some of those things. I don't always like or share them, but when I see them, I always just take a second and go, that's just such a powerful message that you're putting in there. And I think a lot of people, particularly men who maybe haven't had the opportunity or maybe are afraid to be that way with themselves, it's so important for them to hear that, hey, it's okay. Yeah, be as authentic to yourself as you can, and let those feelings out and understand yourself, and that helps you grow and push in the right direction rather than shield up all the time and never
Mhm.
never actually fixing the problems, because we only
Yeah.
grow by addressing it head on. And some of the things you talk about uh, really, really help with that. And I've definitely felt that. So thank you. But
Oh
also
no, no, no,
don't
you're
stop,
welcome.
because that's awesome.
No, I don't. I don't intend to.
Good,
You
good.
know, I'm a great believer that if you really want to be an influencer and you want to influence people, you do it through being an example and an invitation. Um, People, your actions and your words need to marry up. And so, you know, it's amazing when I do meet people that they go, "Wow, you're just like the person I saw online." I said, "Well, why shouldn't I be?
Yeah, exactly.
This is who I am. I don't feel like in a former life where I needed to put on the character and this is where this is the time when my language was fouler and I was a bit more gruff and because here I am, I'm the big tall guys in the martial arts covered in tattoos and and need to project this image of being the alpha guy,
Yes,
and so and once I let go of all that, I realized that hey, you can still be a strong person, but just be yourself and be balanced.
that's right.
Sometimes you're going to be a bit harder, sometimes you're going to be a little bit more gentle, and that's okay. But the important thing is just to be who you are. And it took me a very long time to get to that stage of being okay within our own skin, because again, primary fear, we're not enough. And we look at others and we try to aspire to be like others and we put people up on a pedestal. And I was guilty of all that. And all this stuff I'm sharing with you kids right now, I didn't come out of my mother's womb with this wisdom. This stuff came to me much later in life. I call myself a late bloomer, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually, I see it as a badge of honor because I feel like I'd rather be late to the party than a no-show. Yeah. And so there's hope for everyone. No matter what age you are, it's never too late to start. It's never too late to get things moving and start the U-turn in life. It really isn't. People talk about, loving yourself, and people can cringe over that. But the way I would frame it is being okay with all that I am, all my good points, all my bad points, acknowledging that I'm not perfect, that I am flawed, that I have work to do. But I'm okay with all of that. The good parts, the bad parts, the stuff that's indifferent. And not to judge myself for those things, and understand that anything that I'm feeling or what I talk about, I know that other people are feeling it too and have experienced it too. We all want to be able to relate to someone that gets it, that feels like, oh, they get it. Oh, yeah, he's talking to me right now. I just go with that. And that's what actually gives me more fuel to continue on this path and try and be this person, be a good human, do some good things to the world, and leave a legacy. Not because of any necessarily records I've worked on, but because people remember the way you lived when you're alive, and because of the thing you said to them or the thing you did for them that actually managed to take them on a different trajectory that otherwise may not have happened because of your presence. That to me is what it's about, and that's what legacy is.
Well, you know what? That's actually just sparked something for me. This podcast, even as much as the technology and the Dolby Atmos, of obviously, all of this incredible stuff that we do in the industry, it's as much about that as it is helping other people get started or take the next step in their journey. And what you just said about legacy, I think is something that we can all learn something from. That's like probably the most important thing, if not the most important thing. We don't live forever, and it is a small amount of time really. And what we do with that and how we conduct ourselves, and no matter what career we're in, what matters is, how people, like you said, remember us, and how that lives on through the people that follow. That's something that, I hope, that this, at least this podcast, can help people get started thinking in the right direction for that, and always just trying to better themselves in a little bit more of a positive way, and realizing those things, like we're not perfect, and we're not supposed to be perfect. We're supposed to learn and grow through our mistakes as well, and try not to make the same mistakes. But that's that legacy, and that whole learning life experience, I think, just translates to everything that we're doing. So that's a really cool thing to talk about. So thanks for that.
I just want to share one thing with the audience just to close things off, and I think it's an important message I want to get through, and that is for those of you who are artistic and creative and are wanting to do something with yourselves. I'm going to share with you a beautiful story that my mentor Peter Sage shared with me, which was very impactful. And he talked about this thing called the curse of the white rabbit. Okay. Now, we're all familiar with greyhounds and the greyhound tracks and the race and all that, chasing the rabbit. The question was asked, how many times do the dogs, barring a technical fault, catch the rabbit? The answer is none, right? The rabbit is the metaphor for what you're chasing, right? Is it money, success, girls, fame, validation, love, approval? Okay. Clout. They never catch the rabbit. And do you know why? Because it's set up that way. And it's not because there's a conspiracy going on. It's not because, life is the conspiracy that's never going to let you get what you want, right? It's set up that way because these dogs are born to run. Right? No dog ever in the history of dog racing that I know who never caught a rabbit ever said, I'm not going to go there next week. Bugger this for a joke. I'll never catch the rabbit. What's the point? It's all too hard. No, I'm done. They don't. They keep coming, and they're delirious, and they're happy because they're born to run, like you kids are born to create. Doesn't matter if you don't get an award or a Grammy or an Oscar or a Tony or any kind of award at all. Those things are nice to get, but it's all about process, about the fact that you're just on the track, and that's where fulfillment is. You can achieve all the things in the world, but you're always going to want more. So long as you are in the race, and so long as you're having fun and doing the thing that you enjoy and it fills your heart and gives you joy, then that's what it's about. And I'm going to encourage you to follow that. And all the other stuff that may come along or may not come along, we're just going to be consequences, okay? They're just going to be those wonderful little bonuses that happen on the side. So get involved, love what you do, be a nice person, build good relationships, and the rest will take care of itself.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's about the journey. It's such a important thing to remember. And everyone who is listening to this, please go and check out more from Tony here, or Jack the Bear, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, we are getting to the end of the podcast here. Thank you so much for jumping on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure.
We have covered quite a bit here. Do you want to fill anyone in with some links or anything like that?
Look, I'm pretty active on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is Tony Jack Mantz, and Insta is Mastering Music, Mastering Life. I'm pretty active there, so people want to hit me up there. More than happy to talk to them.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, man. I'll see you very, very soon.
Will indeed. Thanks a lot, Dan. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Enjoy, man.
See you, mate.